Hey guys, Somebody's Gun here. Today we're going to be VOD reviewing Putrick. He had the least number of elims in the top 5 of either EU and NA East during the first two qualifiers this weekend. So as you can see, he didn't get off to a great start, but finished 4th overall in the second qualifier in EU. So we're going to go ahead, look at his games, and find out, okay, what is this guy doing and how he was able to qualify in basically 3 games. Putrick's issues in Game 1 come from being shambles going into endgame. So right now, he's only got 3 floppers for heal, and honestly, the one shield that he does have is going to wind up hurting him because everyone's going to hear him get cracked. So he rotates here to 5th zone. He does so effectively, but then once he positions himself, he leaves himself open on the backside. He gets cracked. And then the rest of the lobby hears that, and then Mr. Savage will then go ahead and jump on him to take advantage of this elim. Boom. Kind of shambles game 1. Not a great position going into endgame. He needed to be looking for a refresh as opposed to just playing passively there. So once again, endgame, Putrick is not in the best position. He's rotating here to first moving zone, has 4 floppers, a single mini, and a crash pad. 50 total builds. Excellent. Not in a bad position, can easily rotate this zone, even is about to do so fairly freely if he stays on this left side and just goes through the open or dead side of the zone here. His problem is when he stops here to look back for a refresh, there's no one behind him since he's on the dead side, and then he allows players to get in front of him, and once he starts rotating, trying to do so without building, he winds up getting beamed. So if he were to rotate on that dead side the entire time without stopping, he would have been in a good position. Then he went also to look for a refresh in a position where there's not going to be many players. So that was his big downfall in this game right here. Once again, Putrick's issues stem from being shambles going into the end game. Now, here he has 4 floppers, like consistently is having floppers and should be doing better in these positions. Now, his problem is his indecisiveness. So he shambles, he knows he needs a refresh, but he's worried that players around him will target him if he goes for a refresh in one of these positions. So instead of going and jumping on that refresh Kid Boca's got, he decides to wait, be patient, and then hold him on the edge of zone here. The problem is that he decides not to actually make the move. He's very inconsistent and indecisive here. So he doesn't know if he wants to go make a play onto the Kid Boca down below. Ultimately decides to make the play and then pulls out, which then puts him in even more of a shambles position. His shield gets cracked. Everyone around him hears that, and then he falls to multiple people spraying him. So we see him go down, try and make a play here. He gets scuffed a little bit trying to get back up. Then he gets cracked, and here comes the spray from all different angles. So indecisiveness is the huge piece that got him killed here. Instead of deciding to go for that refresh, he thinks about it, invests some mats, and then winds up getting sprayed by multiple different players. And instead of getting a refresh there, he gets nothing and sent back to the lobby. We tune in with Putrick in first moving zone. And honestly, he makes this game look so simple when we all know it really isn't. He's found a way to really simplify this game and put an easier way of looking at it. Now we see him get this refresh, and this essentially gives him the perfect loadout to then go ahead and win this game. So he's on the front side of zone now. He's going to be back and be about middle by the time that he gets it. But what Putrick winds up doing and what really turns his tournament around is, one, not getting tilted after having 3 bad games. And then the second one is finding a way to stay alive here and do so without having to spend egregious amounts of mats or have to play out of your mind, right? He makes the game slow, simple, stays front side of zone, avoids any kind of crazy combat, and gets kills and elims when he needs, but doesn't force the issue, right? He knows he has simple rotates. He's always looking to make plays on these rotates, and we see him do this time and time again. So what he does is he's going to look to flopper play on 7th zone, which is typically where he does it. 7th or 8th zone is going to be where he looks to make his flopper play. So now he's on front side. He's in zone. He's looking back, trying to find potential free elims, but not going to force them if he doesn't see them there, right? Perfect. Not risking it. Placements are more important at this point. He's going to get a bunch more placements. He gets zone, pull to him, and now watch how he plays this, because this is something that we can all do and all learn from Putrick. So nothing crazy, but staying front side, rotating on a corner here, finding a good layer where he's not going to be contested for, and then owning pieces as zone gets near. So he's not even waiting for zone to actually get to these places. He's taking the pieces in zone, giving himself a nice rotate, and then once he's in, he's fully boxing, and we're going to look back once again. It's the simplicity and the ease in which he does this that makes this game so special, right? Because most players think that this game's super difficult, and it is. Like, don't get me wrong, but then there's just times like this where amazing players make the game look easy and show us that it can be recreated by players who aren't the best, right? Like someone like myself who's not the best could do something along these lines. Maybe I don't make it this far in the game, but if I were to, I could play front side, play floppers, and then make it this distance. But Putrick is better than most players, right? So he's able to turn this top 7 placement here, soon to be top 6, into a win because he's able to find himself a good layer, rotate through some old builds, and then get an elim to win the game. So very good awareness of his materials here. Before he uses his absolute last mat, he jumps out, gives himself some protection from the cover above. And this is just staying on a good layer, being aware of what's going on around you. And now there's not a ton of chaos. Now it's pretty reasonable. It's manageable as to what can happen. And Putrick knows this. He just needs to stay alive. He's biding his time to try and get some extra placements as they come through. And here's the moment that wins the game. This shot onto Noah Riley wins him the game, gives him that 50 extra HP, which then allows him to win this over Moraine. So, playing simple, slowly, and with ease, but then knowing, okay, I need to make a play to win the game at this moment. Take the shots when they're given to you and go ahead and pursue victory instead of just pursuing the next available placement. Great game here by Putrick, and it really shows the intelligence and the skill from him. All right, we will start with Putrick here on this rotation to 5th zone. And I think this game honestly shows his intelligence the most, because once again, we see him in a great position as far as materials go. And this is basically the story. If Putrick is in a good position, he knows how to rotate these end games and how to save mats and how to continue his progression, use his loadout to be able to get that extra placement to make, top 10 consistently. The problem is for him getting to these endgame positions with the materials. So we see him scouting, trying to find a path to rotate on. Eventually, we do see the crash pads used in front of him, and great way for him to scout, then recycle these crash pads, basically rotates him all the way into 5th zone, and that puts him in a beautiful position. Having to spend little to no materials to rotate into 5th zone, get a fairly high position in zone. That's going to give him vision moving forward. And we'll see how he's able to use this to then push himself to a 6th overall placement. So once again, just scouting, taking the time, not editing his builds, editing his walls, besides just to look what's going on around him. He's looking for information, then going to wind up hopping in his cone, looking for any possible elims, any information he can grab for his next rotation, and just keeping himself informed on what's going on in the lobby, right? This is super key to do during 5th zone, because your rotation is then the most important thing that's going to be moving forward. So once again, he's going to be able to recycle recycle a pad here because he's sitting in his cone, gaining this information. He's going to hear the pad placed, and then go ahead, use this to get front side of first moving zone. We'll go ahead, see this in action. And then we're going to see the true genius of him staying ahead of zone, using all the information, all his mats available, the floppers, extending his game the most he can. So he puts himself in a relatively good position. Don't know that you want to be ultimate low here, but because he's on front side, it's not going to kill him a ton. And he realizes that no one's really behind him. So he takes a second to look back and identify, okay, what's going on behind me? Then he sees no one is on this side of zone. So he can rotate relatively free. He uses wood builds, which is so smart to save those hard mats. Then once he starts getting into the congestion, he switches over to some harder builds, aka brick. But a beautiful rotation on the side here to avoid spending a ton of materials and having to full tarp in the zone. And that's what you could do. When you identify the dead side, you can then rotate ahead, rotate on what I would call one of the corners of zone, and save a ton of mats. So he gets zone to pull back to him. And then he's going to stay on this corner. No one is on this side for him, and he knows that. So it's great for him to identify this and then continue to take advantage of it. Have these cheap tarps. This is a 2-build tarp. I don't know many of you that would be able to say, okay, I built to 7th moving zone using a 2-build tarp. Putrick is able to do this because it identifies a good position within the game, within the match. And then when he sees opportunities to take more space without having to full tarp, he goes ahead and grabs them. Now he's in zone. It's time to continue to gather information, look for these rotates. And he's grabbing himself extra space. Now, this is the time where plays become important. You must make a play to extend your game. But also, how are you going to use your loadout to maximize your game? So Putrick is clearly starting to look to make plays here. And now he's more in the congestion. He's not in a corner or a side, whatever you want to call it. He's not dead side anymore. He recognizes that. And that's why he's like, okay, let me slow down. Let's make a flopper play here. Let's use my loadout in order to extend my game, get these extra placement points. And then he tries to find a spot in zone. Doesn't work out for him. So once again, slow it down. Okay, let's play some floppers. I have the ability to tank some storm damage. Then he identifies where he wants to be in zone. Unfortunately, he's not able to put himself exactly where he wants to be because he runs out of mats. But instead of panicking, he goes back in zone, finds himself his lair, uses the rest of his loadout, and now it's time to go on the offensive. I would recommend doing this before you have no builds. Nonetheless, doesn't matter. He's in the position he's in. You have to try and make a play. He only picks up 4 builds. Now, the unfortunate part here is he only winds up picking up the brick and metal, so he loses out on all... the wood and metal, loses out on all the brick. That was a few extra builds that could have extended his game just a bit longer. But anyway, 6th place, 1 elim. That's a great game, especially in this format, to make it to top 10 and then extend your game just a little bit longer. This is the final match here from Putrick, and we see him not in a great position. 58 builds, no extra heals, and 1 crash pad for a rotate. So what's he going to do? How are you going to get this refresh? And what we see him do, he begins looking for them as zone moves. He winds up taking some extra damage that he probably didn't want to. The elim comes in just at the right time, so he's able to get some shield still. Don't exactly know how that works, but the elim came through. He still has some shield, 83 health. It is what it is. Now, crash pad, and he's looking for another elim because he's still shambles. He didn't get that refresh. He jumps right on to a player to then get that refresh. The mats are looking amazing. He's able to pick up some more heals, and now Putrick is in a great position, and we know what he does when he's in great positions. He's going to stay ahead of zone, play a middle layer here, and then look to make a play to continue his game, and that's first going to be with floppers, and then it's going to be with elims. So not a ton of mats spent on this rotate, fairly clean rotation here. And this has got to be Putrick's plan. So 7th or 8th zone. Okay, this is when I want to use floppers if I have them. So he's searching, finds himself, on a high layer with some congestion. He's going to use floppers to look for a recycled rotation, whether that be a launch pad, crash pads, or even just a layer he can go through. Here, it is a crash pad. Now it's going to get him front side, and we know what Putrick can do front side of zone. 1 or 2 boxes away from getting in, and he builds that in first before he starts to go look for some elims. So now that he's in zone, he's going to begin to start looking to make plays, which I highly recommend. Don't look back a few tiles away. Get yourself in zone and then start to go look and make plays. So multiple players are going to be super weak, and he does find an elim onto Mongrel. Now, one of the pieces I like about this refresh onto Mongrel is once he jumps into that box, he immediately goes out and builds himself his own box. So instead of just jumping in a box that you have no control over, give yourself some space to work with, and that's what he does so well there. Then this is just going to be extending your game as much as you possibly can. He gets shambles, but is able to stay alive because he's switching layers, changing angles, making it difficult for himself to be chased by this player that cracked him. So now no one knows he's weak, but the problem is here he now sits and is waiting for this chug jug while other players are looking to make plays. Benji jumps in his box and he goes down. Does make it to 6th overall position, but if he played a little slower there with the floppers instead of trying to rip the chug jug right away, he would have been able to extend his game just a little bit further. Not that big of an issue. He still came in 4th place. Beautiful play there from Putrick to stay alive, get some refreshes, get elims. We saw he was able to play a passive style and extend his games as long as possible with his materials and limited refreshes. But in this game, we see he's just as good as anyone else at getting refreshes. He just doesn't want to put himself in positions where he might not be able to continuously win and get solid placements. So keys for Putrick: win games when he has good mats, get top 10 when he has good mats, and use his loadout to the best of his abilities. Every single time he's consistently doing that, which is amazing to see. Consistency, and to be honest, doesn't get tilted after having 3 bad games to start. Comes up, clutches it up. A lot of players give up at that point. Applause to Putrick. Great job, my man. Solid placements. That's all I got for you guys this time. I hope you enjoyed the video. My most impressive piece of watching Putrick was him not tilting and continuing to play out all these games and clutching up after having a really bad start. He was consistently making endgames, but not doing so with a solid win condition as far as his loadout goes. Then, once he's able to get those, he turns it around, consistently does well in those final 3 matches, and not only qualifies for heats, but also puts himself in top 4 and wins some cash. So, amazing job by him, and if anything, this shows you guys don't give up after a couple of bad games. You can continue to implement your plan if you believe in it, play well, and then wind up qualifying, or even more, like Putrick did. So, if you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I do appreciate it. Additionally, I stream on Twitch, do viewer VOD reviews every Tuesday, so make sure you're checking that out. That is at twitch.tv/somebodiesgun. If you have any questions, let me know below in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.